We are all too aware, unfortunately, of the manipulation that can come from the guru. Ultimately, those who are using their position of authority as a place to be manipulating and abusing others are not in fact gurus. And yet what comes through them can still be a transmission that transforms. Lineage, Parampara, was meant to be a safeguard, a sacred chain of realization passed through hearts of awakened beings. In our time, and maybe long before this time, lineage alone can no longer guarantee integrity, safety, and the validity of that teacher in the path. Many of us have seen firsthand the kind of abuse that can come from a teacher, even if they are part of a lineage. To be a teacher within a lineage means that you have been empowered by an authority that they have vouched for you as having the integrity, heart, and understanding required in order to transmit the light of the lineage. The idea is simple. If a teacher is recognized by a master, it implies that the realization has ripened to a point of absolute truth and radiance. In its purest form, lineage keeps the current of consciousness unbroken. But this safeguard of lineage has been corrupted. Teachers authorized by their teachers have used their power for manipulation, coercion, and abuse. Students have surrendered discernment in the name of devotion. The same mechanism that's meant to preserve truth can also protect dysfunction when a hierarchy is put in place that prevents the students from questioning the authority. So let me tell you a little bit about my own story, for I have experienced this kind of distortion of the guru firsthand. I followed a teacher for many years, and then it was revealed that they were manipulating, lying, abusing, and sexually coercing their students. It was absolutely devastating. I was struck with grief along with so many of my Sangha siblings. Everything that had felt sacred suddenly felt contaminated. And yet, by grace, something allowed me to begin to separate the teacher from the teaching, to distinguish the transmission of the light that had come from the form that I perceived and thought that it came through. And this profound realization came that the grace, the presence, the beauty that I had received was beyond the person that sat at the front of the room in that seat. And as that structure of the guru, the guru became the man and collapsed into his shadow, I was freed of the following that I had been doing and renewed in perceiving grace as far beyond a physical form. It showed me that I couldn't be a sheep anymore, and that the devotion that I once had, although I loved it so much, it had been with a blindness. And now I understood the importance of discrimination and discernment. It was a really painful gift, but one that matured my relationship with truth. Now, after an experience like that, many seekers swing to the other extreme. They decide never to trust a teacher again, to run away from spirituality, and that surrender is weakness. But we can't grow if we close our heart off this way. Devotion is still very sacred. Surrender is still very sacred, but it has to have a certain level of discernment with it. We can receive grace even through flawed teachers because grace doesn't belong to them. It's something that moves through them and ultimately moves through everything. Sometimes it takes the collapse of that form to learn to see that with clarity. So how can we discern whether a teacher is someone that we can trust and surrender to? Well, there's no absolute way. There's no test you can take to be certain. And that's kind of the point of surrender. There's a little bit of a leap of faith or risk required. But I can, however, offer you some red flags. First and foremost, for me, is any teacher now that tries to present themselves as perfect, I do not believe it. If you're in the physical form, you are naturally imperfect. There's nothing in this manifest world that is perfect, and anybody who tries to tell you otherwise, they cannot be trusted in my mind. And if a teacher is claiming that they have exclusive access to truth or insists that only through them and their path and their teachings can you awaken, well, this also is faulty. And when a loyalty to the teacher is valued more than the love of truth, to the point that we cannot question or push back against the teacher. This is definitely a red flag for me as well. If the community and sangha around the teacher is filled with secrecy, inner circles, and a sense of kind of a ladder that you can climb to get closer to them or closer to the higher teaching. This is also a red flag. For me, at this point, any teacher that is offering sexual energy healing, I have red flags. When discomfort is weaponized, your confusion or your pain is labeled as proof of your inferiority or your need of them, red flag. When the teacher speaks of themselves as flawless and of you as broken, red flag. Personally, I would say if any of this is present with your teacher or any teacher you're considering, then I would say walk away. No realized being needs to prove perfection. It's a fallacy in the end. So let's not just talk about the negative parts. Let's also talk about some signs or green flags for a healthy relationship with a teacher. Being that maybe we could trust and surrender to. I think the teacher that points out your own inherent knowing, your own inherent truth. This is a teacher that can be trusted. A teacher that models transparency, humility, and humanity, that honors boundaries and clearly names them, that explicitly looks for consent. These are all very good signs, I think, for a healthy teacher. A teacher that creates spaces that are inclusive of others, considerate of diverse experiences, and in general understand that they have their own limitations and imperfection and are continuously showing up, wanting to know how to do better, rather than being at some false finish line where they've got it all figured out. These are my favorite kinds of teachers. I think generally you want to leave the presence of your teacher feeling more yourself, more spacious, more empowered, more clear, more centered. But at the same time, a good teacher is going to challenge you. They're potentially going to make you feel uncomfortable sometimes. And sometimes just being in their presence will shake up a lot of irritation, as there's a purification in the system and a releasing of the shackles of the ego. A true teacher will not require your dependence, your allegiance, and your forever dedication to them. They will restore your sovereignty and your sense of empowerment. And as I said, being with a teacher can still be uncomfortable. Awakening often burn through illusion, but that pain feels clarifying and liberating, not degrading. It humbles the ego, but it doesn't humiliate the person. So these are the simplest flags that I could give to you to help to navigate this path. And I think it's important to realize that to some degree, every student, especially in the beginnings of our spiritual path, we're going to project a kind of perfectionism, a divine understanding onto the teacher. Kind of think that that's part of how the transmission works. Being open to perceive them as being something more than just the physical allows us to see the reality that nothing in the physical is innately inert. Everything has this divine essence and energy within it. And for a time, we need to find these kinds of placeholders as murtis or iconography or mantras, or even as a physical person being perceived as the divine embodied. But that cannot be the place that forever we hold them. And we will inevitably be let down, even if they're not a teacher that is manipulating or abusing. It's like when we realize that our parents are not the sun and the moon, but humans on earth. This process is also required with the teacher. I'd like to hope and pray that the world is waking up to a certain degree, that inviting the future lineage of yoga to not be a pyramid of power, but a circle of recognition, a field of consciousness where love and humility and connection and clear seeing are replaced by this kind of hierarchy of perfection. So to truly honor lineage is not to idolize our teacher, it's to live with integrity and discernment. So may we all live and know that rebirth of lineage is a circle of recognition that requires surrender as well as discernment, that is clear, humble, and always rooted in the essence of truth. Om Namah Shivaya.